and Sorcerer. Feel my power. You are master.
This is my Sorcerer Pinball. It was built by Williams in 1985, designed by Mark Ritchie. You might know Mark Ritchie from his later work on Fishtails, another Williams game, or you might just know him as brother of Steve Ritchie, who's still designing pinballs today. Let's turn it on and take a look at some of the features. Sorcerer is my favorite of all my pinball machines. I like it because of its simplicity and how brutal it is. I also love the artwork. It's a simple game. It's got a standard Italian bottom with 2 out lanes, 2 in lanes, and a center post. This is one of the rare concessions that it makes to the player. Otherwise, aside from that center post, everything on this playfield's against you. So, standard bottom, 2 spinners. The first one is a half orbit shot that goes to the rollover lanes on top. The second one exits to these 3 pop bumpers. Below the pop bumpers is a third flipper, which is offset on the right side of the playfield, even though it's activated by the left flipper switch. There's a bank of stand-up targets that together spell Sorcerer. 3 drop targets, and a bank of 4 rollovers. You also see this lock ramp that crosses the playfield and ends down here. Sorcerer has 2-ball multi-ball mode. So you lock 1 ball, get another ball, lock the second ball, and they both eject under the skate here. One of the most obvious features of the Sorcerer playfield is this bank of stand-up targets that, together with the spinners, spell Sorcerer. So one of the key objectives in the game is to complete all of those flashing targets and spell Sorcerer. So you do that by activating the spinners and then hitting each target. You can see when we completed Sorcerer, 2 things happened. These lights under the spinners lit up. When those lights are lit, your spinners are a lot more worthwhile. You can hear the extra sound they make. If you get a really good rip on one of those spinners when these lights are lit, it'll increase your score dramatically. And the second thing that happened is this demon target lit up. Demon on this game is a bonus hold. So if we complete these 3 drop targets when Demon is lit, will get hold bonus. And you have to do it within a certain amount of time, otherwise they reset. So you get the ball into this area either by going through this spinner and ejecting into the pop bumpers, or by flipping up here, or by going through this spinner and going over the rollover lanes. Once you get it in here, you can use the third flipper up here to keep the ball in play and knock down all three of these targets. When you do that, you get not only the value that's highlighted, but you also get hold bonus if it's lit. So you can see that our bonus holdover light is now lit. What that does for us is, when we drain our ball, the bonus is shown here. So you can see I've got 12 showing, 10 and then 2 more. As we complete targets in the playfield, the bonus increases. And when the ball drains, we get points for each of our bonus lights that was lit. You can see when we started on our second ball, these lights are still lit. Normally they would extinguish and we'd start our bonus over from 0, but because we got a hold bonus, we keep these points into the second ball. If you complete Sorcerer multiple times in a single ball, there's the first. Let's do it again. Then you light extra ball. So in addition to having your hold bonus, you have the potential to get an extra ball. Once again, you accomplish that by completing all the drop targets when extra ball is lit within the time allotted. So now we've got an extra ball, and we get to hear that bell. I love that bell. You'll also notice that the Playfield special is now lit. If you're able to complete Sorcerer 3 times on a single ball, then you'll get a special. If you spell Sorcerer 3 times, you light this Playfield special. If you spell it a 4th time, you get the Playfield special, which is pretty cool in itself because there aren't many games that have a Playfield special. Once you collect the Playfield special, you'll see that these lights in the out lanes have lit for specials. So not only is there a Playfield special, but there's also an out lane special. On some games you can control the placement of the out lane special by flipping the flippers. On Sorcerer you can't. On Sorcerer it's completely controlled by the kickers. So as the kickers kick the ball, the Playfield special changes positions. And you're up to the mercy of the game as to whether you can collect it. Another prominent feature on the Playfield is this lock ramp. Sorcerer has a 2-ball multi-ball. So if you're able to lock a ball in this ramp, it's locked here and comes to rest. You get a second ball. And if you can lock the second ball, you get multi-ball. Aside from getting to play with 2 balls, which is cool in itself, you have the additional benefit of a Playfield multiplier. So while you're in multi-ball mode, and these are lit, right now we're scoring 2x on every shot. So every target we're able to complete, we get twice the points for it. If you can lock a ball again, the ball unlocks immediately, so you keep your 2-ball multi-ball, and the Playfield multiplier goes up, so now we get 3 times the points for every target we hit. And if you can lock again, now we're getting 5 times the point for every shot we hit. Multi-ball is the best way to really rack up your score in Sorcerer, and if you can keep the multi-ball going long enough and get more lock shots, you'll really rack up some points. At the top of the playfield are 4 rollover lanes, marked A, B, C, and D. When you roll over them, they light. If you can roll over all 4, then you multiply your bonus at the end of the ball. So as we roll over, again, we go from 1x to 2x to 4x to 6x to 8x. So it's advantageous to roll over those as often as possible. To help you do that, there's a lane switch on the right flipper. So if I've got A and B lit and the ball is heading for A or B, I can use the right flipper to advance and get the ball to roll over an unlit lane. But you have to be careful because Sorcerer, being the brutal game it is, but behind this small rubber here is a lane change switch, and if you hit it, the lanes will advance by themselves. So if the ball's bouncing around and you're trying to gauge where it's going to land, let's say I think it's going to land in B, and it's bouncing around, and I open up B and the ball hits here, the lanes will change automatically. That's especially cruel when you think the ball is going to land in D, and it bounces off here, and then falls through a lit D. Here's a tip. At the beginning of your ball, all the Sorcerer letters reset, so they're all flashing. If you take a full plunge, the ball ends up at the top at the rollover lanes. It's pretty easy to get a ball up there, either by going through this spinner or by flipping through this lane here. So getting a ball to the rollovers is not really a big deal. It's a little bit more difficult to hit all these Sorcerer letters. So one of the things you can do at the beginning is take a soft plunge, just hard enough to get it above this gate and to get it to roll back down through the spinner to collect the R in Sorcerer. Then the ball's going to return down to the flippers, and you can control it and make whatever shot you want.
I am a master. I am a sorcerer. You are done, mortal. Feel my power. power. Well done, Master.
There aren't any fancy mechanisms to break on Sorcerer, but there are a few trouble spots to watch out for. On all the games I've seen, this center plastic piece has been broken, especially right here on the screw on the right side. The ball likes to catch air around the area of the center plastic, and it's prone to failure here and here. So I've put a clear washer to protect the edge of this plastic. That plastic piece is a reproduction made by Planetary Pinball. Planetary makes reproduction plastics for the entire Sorcerer Playfield. So if your centerpiece is broken, you might want to consider getting a reproduction from Planetary. They sell the kit as a whole. You can't buy pieces separate. It even includes this back panel and the eyes behind the back panel. So it's all of the plastic pieces except for the pop bumper caps, which are also prone to breakage. I was lucky enough to find a replacement for my broken pop bumper cap on eBay. This one was originally broken on this edge. The ball catches air in the area of the pop bumpers too. Here's my original pop bumper. You can see it suffered due to an air ball. The balls like to bounce off this post and catch air and hit this corner. And they also sometimes catch air off the pop bumper, because you can get a direct line from the flipper through this lane and hit the pop bumper pretty hard. So they like to break. Nobody makes reproductions of these, so they're kind of hard to get. It helps a little bit that the same pop bumper was used on a game called Laser Ball, which was made in 1979 by Williams. So 6 years later, they reused the pop bumper caps on Sorcerer. Kind of makes more sense when you look at the design, that it was used in a game called Laser Ball. You can see my pop bumpers are lit up. That was actually a lot of trouble to get those working. And these pop bumpers right now, I've got 555 lamps. What came stock was a 44 or a 47 in a bayonet type socket, and those just don't last. For instance, I replaced one of the bayonet sockets, and it worked for maybe a month. and then it started flickering and finally failed again. So the type of sockets that you find in pop bumpers that use those bayonet lamps just aren't durable. So I removed the pop bumpers and replaced all of the sockets with wedge sockets and 555 bulbs, and those work a lot better. So that's something else to keep in mind. When I first got the game, none of the flash lamps worked. There's flash lamps under this plastic and under this plastic. They didn't work because they were the wrong bulbs. They look like 89 bulbs, but they're not. They're 63s. If you put in 89s, you won't see them flash at all. But 63s flash very brightly. So make sure that the flash bulbs here and here are 63s. It took me years to figure out that there's actually flash bulbs behind the eyes as well. So make sure those are installed, and those are 63s as well. Sorcerer Playfields weren't clear-coated or diamond-plated, so you'll see most of them are pretty beat up. Mine has a lot of crazing and damage around the decals. It's also been touched up pretty crudely. You can see that the demon text isn't even readable anymore. And there's been some pretty crude color match around in this area. And also over here in this area. Reproduction decals are available for the inserts. And there is somebody who is printing new playfields. If you send in your old playfield, he will strip the paint, and then print a new surface on it and clear coat it. They look gorgeous, and they're fairly inexpensive, but I just can't stand to be apart from my Sorcerer long enough to send my playfield in. Sorcerer has a beautiful back glass, and it's a real back glass. It's mirrored. You may find them with damage from the heat from the light bulbs behind them, so there can be areas of lifted paint. Mine's got a small spot of damage right here where someone rubbed the back of the back glass, which is unfortunate. There's talk of planetary making reproductions, which would be awesome. Unlike System 11 machines where the lock is on the side, and WPC machines where the lock is in the front, the lock is actually on the top on the System 9 machine. I still have the original displays. Xpen makes replacement LED displays, which I'll probably end up getting at some point. Sorcerer uses the System 9 board set. It's pretty similar to System 11. I think it differs in the area of the sound board. The sound's actually integrated onto the CPU board in System 9. This board over here is the speech board. So you've got your flipper power board, your general power supply, the speech board, and the MPU board. I've had to have some work done on this board. One of the pop bumpers locked and blew out a transistor and a resistor. But other than that, it's been pretty solid. It's even still the original power supply. One thing that you definitely need to look out for is a lack of fuses for the bridge rectifiers that are mounted on the back of the backboard here. I added these fuses, 2 8-amp slow blow fuses, to protect those bridges. Williams, at a later point, added these fuses themselves. Ironically, it was a Williams game called Fire that added them. Because without these fuses, if those bridges short out, there's nothing to prevent the game from literally catching on fire when it draws too much current. So if you have a Sorcerer or any game before Fire, make sure you look into adding these fuses. The lamp connectors on the CPU board are at the upper left. You want to keep an eye on those and make sure they're not burnt. I had to replace this connector and the header because mine were burnt. Only 4 games used the System 9 board set, so nobody currently reproduces the System 9 CPU. The power supplies are pretty easy to get a hold of. There's a few companies that reproduce those. I don't think anybody's reproducing the speech board. There's a pretty cool product that adds these fuses if you don't want to do it yourself. Sorcerer isn't a complex game. There aren't any complex mechanisms to fail. When you have to work on it, you'll notice that there's no playfield hinge. The playfield's loose on wooden rails. So when you lift it up, you want to slide it forward a little bit to clear the plastics and back. And then be careful as you lift it. Now there is a prop bar right here that you can try to prop up the playfield with, but I recommend not using that because the playfield's loose and it only props up on one side. So when you prop up on this side, the playfield tends to lift and this side of the playfield falls, and it might fall right into the cabinet. So I typically bypass that prop bar, and instead I lift the whole playfield up and rest it on the back box. So lift it, bring it forward on its rails, make sure it's parallel to the back box, and then let it fall back. So it rests like that, and that gives you really easy access to the entire playfield. In fact, I really like this because it's really easy to get to these bottom components. When pinballs have a playfield hinging mechanism, it oftentimes leaves these bottom mechanisms deep in the playfield. It's hard to get to. So it's kind of a pain to get this up and get it stationary, but once you do, it gives you really good access to the entire playfield bottom. You'll notice a notch carved in the in the rail here that you can use to prop up the playfield to be sure that it's not going to fall on you. So if you take a screwdriver and stick it into this notch, let me find a screwdriver. There's one. Stick it in this notch, it'll prevent the playfield from sliding forward and falling back. If you're used to working on more modern machines, you'll see a few interesting things in the cabinet. First off, these flipper switches carry the full 50 volts of the flippers. So on more modern Fliptronics machines, these are just normal gold-plated contact switches. But on the older machines, like this System 9 machine, these are tungsten contacts. So they'll, just like your older end-of-stroke switches on flippers, these will corrode. So you need to make sure that you've got good capacitors across the switch contacts, and keep an eye on them to look for corrosion and pitting. You'll also see this roll tilt mechanism. When I got Sorcerer, this ball was missing. It looks like a regular pinball, but it's not. It's a 15/16 diameter. So make sure you get the right size, otherwise it won't roll correctly. So the roll tilt protects the game against cases where someone lifts the entire game up in the front to decrease the angle of the playfield to get the ball to stop rolling down into the out lanes and down between the flippers. So when you lift the cabinet, this ball rolls back and opens this switch, and that causes the game to reset. So not only do you have a typical tilt mechanism that protects the game against lateral movements, but you've also got this roll tilt that protects against lifting the game. You'll also see this bell, which is a great feature. The System 9 games had a bell like this. So when you activate certain features in the playfield, you'll hear it ring. Taxi used that a lot. Sorcerer doesn't use it as much, so it's always a pleasure to hear it ring when you get it to go off. On these old machines, you'll sometimes find lockout coils that normally sit here and here on each side of the coin mech that prevent the player from inserting coins when the machine isn't ready to accept it. So for instance, if the machine is off and a player tries to insert a coin, the lockout coil will send the coin right into the return slot. So when the machine's on, the coil is constantly active, and it allows the coin to go through the mechanism and credit up the machine. So in a home situation, I've removed those coils, so you can actually see a couple wires that I've taped off here, because there's just no reason to have a coil energized constantly in a home situation. It's just one less thing that can go wrong. So you might want to look out for that. Under the playfield, you'll see these large cement power resistors, 4 of them, 2 here and 2 here. These are warming resistors for the flash lamps. They get very hot, and with the vibration of the playfield, they've been known to desolder themselves and fall off. So if your flash lamps stop working, you might check these connections to make sure they're sturdy, and that you still have all 4 resistors. On some versions of Sorcerer, you'll see capacitors across these end-of-stroke switches on the flippers. My Sorcerer doesn't have them. So you have to be mindful that these end-of-stroke switches are likely to corrode and pit because they don't have capacitors to arrest the arcing across them. So you'll want to keep an eye on that if you don't have the capacitors. The capacitors are easy to spot if you have them. They're very large black cylinders that are here and well, I think they're both here, 2 of them. you'll notice that there's a lane change switch on the right flipper with a plastic buffer that separates it from the high voltage across the end of stroke switch. And there isn't one on the left flipper, nor is there one on the upper flipper. So be careful that there isn't any electrical contact between this switch stack and this switch stack. That's what this plastic buffer is for.
You are done, mortal. You are done, mortal.